If you choose not to keep little promises to yourself, you actually won't have very much self-trust to keep the big ones. You actually will have very little desire to make big promises to yourself because your brain will be like, well, you can't even keep these little promises you make to yourself. So how in the world are you supposed to expect yourself to keep this big promise?
Welcome to Breakthrough Mode, the podcast where we intentionally get into the driver's seat of our lives, shift out of monotony and mediocrity, and step on the gas towards becoming the person we were always meant to become.
Hello and welcome to Wednesday in the Wild on the Breakthrough Mode podcast. I am your host, Megan Bauer. Thank you so much for joining me and pushing play on today's episode. This week, we are focused on keeping promises that we make to ourselves. And on our Monday episode, I invited and encouraged you to make one tiny promise that you can keep every morning. In this episode, we're going to get into more about why I'm encouraging you to keep this promise to yourself in the morning. But I also want to dive into this kind of impulse reaction that we get when we make little promises to ourselves. If it's something as simple as drinking a glass of water or waiting to scroll your phone until after your shower or something like that, something that doesn't seem life-changing or seem like it will impact your day or seem like a big deal, we often have this impulse to discount its worth when that's not actually how building self-trust goes. When we're focused on building self-trust, it's not actually about how big of a deal the thing is. It's not actually about following through on some major life-changing promise that you're making to yourself. It is actually about all of the little things, because all of the little things add up as individual instances, and all of these individual instances over time create a huge cumulative effect. We are going for the huge cumulative effect of keeping all of these little promises to yourself. And in the end, all of these little promises will actually have more weight and evidence to you following through on the promises that you make to yourself than following through on something big one time. It's not actually about the bigness or smallness of the promise. It's actually about the frequency. It's about how often you keep your promises to yourself, not just about how important it is. Because here's the thing, if you choose not to keep little promises to yourself, you actually won't have very much self-trust to keep the big ones. You actually will have very little desire to make big promises to yourself because your brain will be like, well, you can't even keep these little promises you make to yourself. So how in the world are you supposed to expect yourself to keep this big promise? So when you do keep the little promises, you are much more likely to then first trust yourself to make big promises to yourself and then follow through on those big promises. So if you had the impulse to discount the importance of making a tiny promise to yourself and following through on it, know that that's normal and that this is actually where it's built. This is the most important thing. We are going for frequency and for the cumulative impact of more promises kept than promises not kept. So that is what we are going for. And then the other piece there is this piece about doing it in the morning. I'm about to get on my soapbox. So here is your warning on that. Our morning sets us up for our days more than we realize. How we begin our mornings truly sets us up for the rest of the day. And if you can keep a tiny promise to yourself in the morning, you can use that kept promise as evidence to inform and fuel your day. You can keep referring back to that. I said I was going to drink a glass of water this morning, and I did. So now I can trust myself to do this or do that or whatever. You're setting yourself up for how you want to behave the rest of the day. So for the rest of your to-do list, it feels more possible because now it's like I followed through on this one thing first thing in the morning, and now I can follow through on this thing, and I can follow through on this thing, and it becomes a pattern of behavior. Either way, you can have a pattern of behavior. You can start a pattern of behavior at the middle of the day too. It's just a little bit harder because you have momentum going by the middle of the day. So you are either on track and feeling great, or you're not on track and not feeling great. And you can at any time absolutely change things around. But it is so much easier when you start off the way that you want your day to go and get momentum on your side. So that is why I encourage you to do it in the morning as first thing as you can so that you're building momentum from the beginning and so that you have that momentum that you can feed off of and use throughout the rest of the day. So for me, in my life, I love that principle of like eating the frog, where the most distasteful thing that you have to do all day, or the thing that you don't want to do, or whatever, the thing that you will avoid or procrastinate, if you just get that thing done first, then it sets up the rest of your day. You're not dreading it for the rest of the day. You're not avoiding it for the rest of the day. You're not procrastinating it for the rest of the day. And sometimes we think that dread and avoidance and procrastination don't use up energy because we're not actually doing the thing, but we are actually using an immense amount of energy simply avoiding it or dreading it or procrastinating it because it's hanging out in our brains as an open tab that needs attention, and we are actively not giving it attention. Sometimes we feel like if we're not giving it attention that it's passive, but that isn't always the case. We can be actively avoiding something, which takes energy. However, if you just do the thing, or if I just do the thing, then instead of it draining energy, it becomes a place of confidence. It becomes a place of, I did that, and now I can do all these other things because I made myself do that, or I got through this, or that thing that I didn't want to do, I already did. And it becomes giving. It becomes a place where I receive energy rather than an energy drain, even though I spent energy to do it. I hope that makes sense. So in my life, that's what I try to do. The thing that I don't want to do, I try to do that first. That doesn't always work out based on schedules or timing or whatever. But when I can make it work that way, that's how I choose to make it work. The other experience that I wanted to share about my life as it relates to this is that when I've got a long list, when I am going through it and checking things off, the more that I get to check off, the more that I get to, the more that I take care of, the better I feel. The more confident I feel about my day, the better I feel about my day, the better I feel about myself. And the other side is true too. The more I get distracted, the more I get caught up in other things, the more I avoid or procrastinate and leave these things undone, the worse I feel about my day and the worse I feel about myself. And isn't that such an interesting thing? So so on one hand, we avoid making promises to ourselves because we are avoiding feeling bad about ourselves when we break those promises to ourselves. But by not making promises to ourselves, we aren't giving ourselves an opportunity to build self-trust and to build confidence and to feel great about ourselves for following through. So, of course, there's two problems here. There's the one of not even giving ourselves the chance by not making promises at all, or not, not setting intentions for what we're going to do. And then the other thing is that we don't always follow through. I remember one time it was like this huge revelation to me when I looked at my to-do list and I was like, wait, if I totally 100% intended to do every single thing that I ever put on my to-do list for the day, one, how would that change what I wrote down? And two, wouldn't that be absolutely incredible to feel like, oh my gosh, I get every single list taken care of. I always complete everything on the list. Now, of course, there are days where there are unforeseen things. There are projects that take longer than you anticipate. There are kids that get sick. There are this, that, and the other that you did not see coming. Yes, it's not a fail-safe plan. But how many days, and ask yourself this, how many days do you not get things done simply because you didn't actually want to do that thing? That you avoided it or procrastinated it long enough that now it was just too late and it's time to go to bed. Those are the days, those are the things that I'm actually talking about. Not like all the extenuating circumstances and situations. All of those are going to happen no matter what. But we let go of control sometimes on our days simply because we don't want to do what's written down. But we wrote it down, we made the intention or we made the promise or whatever, and then we don't follow through and then we feel bad about ourselves. So the trick on that is that whenever you make your list, whenever you make a promise to yourself or set an intention to yourself to have your full self behind doing it, your full intentions behind following through and doing the thing, whatever the thing is. Now, this is like one of those easier said than done because we like to be ambitious and we want to like put all of the things on the list, even if we don't actually intend on doing that thing that day. So it's kind of a trick. The point here is intention. The intention to follow through, the intention to do the thing, the intention to keep the promises that you make to yourself. Even though life is unexpected, even though other things happen, even though things take longer than you thought they would, the key there really is intention. And when you set a promise first thing in the morning with the intention to follow through, the idea here is that it's the first thing, so nothing else has had the opportunity to get in the way. Obviously, the farther down the day you go, the more things tend to pop up. The longer things have taken, you've got the space for things to come in and interfere. So if you make that promise to yourself and get it done first thing in the morning, it's already done before the world has the time to step in with its own distractions and situations and circumstances. And then you get to lean on that promise that you made to yourself to inform and fuel your day. And I do this. I do refer back to if I can get up at this time in the morning and exercise and whatever, I've already done the hardest part of my day. And I'll be like, this is easy because I already did that. Or, I did that. So now I can do this. And I do refer back to it as a kept promise, showing myself that I am capable to keep more promises to myself, that I'm capable of following through on more things that I have set up for myself. That's how I hope you use this in your own practice and in your own experience, especially as you're building this self-trust. So, first of all, make that little promise. Know that we are going for frequency and a cumulative impact more than big, grand, impressive promise. Know that it adds up, and then let it fuel you for the rest of your day and inform how you show up to your day and to your commitments to yourself. That's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I totally love you. Bye for now.